Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Matzo, and I am the Professional Development Director at Demonstrated Success, and very happy to have you here today. And we're excited to be able to offer some of these webinars and resources to the field of folks that are busy writing their title grants. And I hope it's of use today. And I'm welcoming Jacqueline Carabinas. Turn your, video on for a second so we can see you. There is Jacqueline.
I was just trying to keep the spotlight on you, Karen. I was trying to get out of the way.
She's our newest member at DS, and she's lovely and smart and 1,000 good things. And she's going to navigate for me. She's going to Vanna today and jump in as needed. So we are going to be talking about evidence-based initiatives and use of SMART goals for effective funding requests. And I'm going to say that if there are title folks here, which I did see some title folks on the list, I need for you to jump in if you have more detail, helpful information, or if I have said anything that is wrong, okay? Because once every 10 years that happens. Okay, next. All right, I'm Karen. I introduced myself already, and I introduced Jacqueline, and that's us. So we are super happy to have you, and you will get a follow-up link with slides, a certificate, and also any relevant handouts from today. So don't worry about taking screenshots or all that, because you're going to get everything. And this will be recorded. And it'll be posted to a playlist on our YouTube channel, and you will get that link as well. Certainly write in to the chat, to the Q&A, raise your hand, do whatever you need to do. And there will be a feedback survey afterwards. If you could fill it out, that would be awesome. Thank you.
I'll just quickly add that if you do use the chat, make sure you, the drop down, it says everyone, so everyone can see your post. I think by default, it's just set to host and panelists. So while Karen and I will love to see your chat, if you want to chat with the full group, just make sure the drop down says everyone.
Thank you. And we are Demonstrated Success, like I said, and these are some of the things that we do. We've been doing a lot of fun work. We started out in data in 2017, and we used to be Data Coaches, our original company membership, and we've just expanded. It's been 6 years, which is crazy, and we've worked a lot. So we continue, obviously, with data. We've been doing a lot of work around MTSS. And it's been very fun and exciting to watch schools realize that they can implement a framework for MTSS, and a lot of SEL this year and next year planned, leadership and ELA and math, and it's good stuff. So that's us. We're in Portsmouth. Just to remind you, this was April 13th session. It was delivered by Mike Schwartz, our fearless president, and it's all about accountability measures, and it will be posted on our YouTube channel. And a lot of the information is posted in different parts of our YouTube channel. I think we have a devoted iPlatform channel, and accountability, and New Hampshire SAS, and so on. So that was that, if you missed it. And we are going to talk about title programs today, and writing title requests. So this first slide sort of gives a snapshot of the title programs in New Hampshire. They're federal programs, and the people in New Hampshire that are affiliated, or the directors of those particular programs. You can see that. And then you can see underneath sort of a very, very broad description of the purpose of the program. So I'm not going to read everything, but I will tell you that on the DOE site, all of these people are for real. They're all lovely. They will all get back to you to help you. I have worked with every single one of them, maybe with the exception of Ellen, and they're just terrific people, full of information. And throughout this session, I want you all to know that most of the information shared here, I have gotten directly from the Department of Ed, and tried to sort of put it all in one place here, but I've also referenced their materials directly. So those are your different title programs, Title I being the biggest, and broadest. And then Title II, we think a lot about supporting effective instruction, professional development. Title III, we think about our multilingual learners. Title IV is sort of a specialized enrichment programs that are targeted to students of high need, focused on well-being, student health, and technology. And then we have our Title V for rural and low-income schools, and then the McKinney-Vento. So those are a summary of some of the programs we'll talk about today. So I'm just going to go dive into this a little bit. And I think many of you know a lot of this, but it's good to have it in one place. So Title I funds should be used to support academic, behavioral, and social emotional supports for Title I students. And that can be targeted programs within a school or school-wide Title I. These are some of the things that you would use Title I in a broad category, that you would use Title I funds for, so that when you're doing your requests, you obviously need to align your requests to the appropriate use of Title I funds. I want to draw your attention to the right-hand corner, where we can see that Ashley and Christina have created, and actually, you know what, Jacqueline, go ahead and you can open it up in a new link, which I know you'll do because you are technologically brilliant that way. What are you doing? Do you know that I'm seeing myself, Jacqueline? And you're probably muted as well.
You don't see it now?
I don't see a screen. Nope.
Okay, let me unshare and try again.
Worst comes first, we don't look at those slides. But what I'm going to tell you about those slides is that they're terrific, very straightforward slides. And I'm just going to have Jacqueline go through them a little bit so you know what's there for you. These guys have done a lovely job sort of summarizing Title I-A and its purposes, what you should and should not be spending money on. And you can sort of do the slow scroll through. Some of the different reserves that are listed there about private schools and family outreach. And here again, we have the allowable and unallowable expenditures. I'm just going to let you sort of just cruise through that. And so it's super, super clear. And there are the there's a contact info for the Title I staff at the DOE. All right.
And I'll put a link to that in the chat for everybody here.
Well, yep. And the link is also in the slides. Okay. Thanks, Jacqueline.
Oh, I have so many slides up. Which one?
Story of our lives. That's not it.
No. Story of our lives is it. Okay, here we go. That's funny. We are one big Google slideshow, right?
Today we are, indeed.
Today we are. Okay, we are resharing.
Great.
We'll be back in business. So funny.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, I'm not seeing any slides.
It's coming.
Now I'm going. All right. So that was about Title I. Let's go to the next, Title II-A, and that's all about improving the effectiveness of teachers, principals, and other school leaders. And you can see here sort of a general overview of what Title II-A funds should be used for. And it's, I don't know, do we dare go into that? The image in the bottom right-hand corner gives a really nice, it's actually, I wouldn't go in there, Jacqueline, but it's the federal government's, it's the federal government outline of Title II rules and regulations. So don't bother. That's okay. You don't need to go in there, but Jacqueline's putting it into the chat. Okay, so those are all about Title IIA funds. And then we think about Title IIIA funds, and you would go to Wendy Perrin, and Wendy Perrin has created a lovely guide, which is linked in the bottom right corner as well. And the focus for spending of Title IIIA funds is about providing language instruction programs that increase English proficiency and achievement for English language learners, providing effective and sustained PD to staff in the school, including regular classroom teachers, principals, other school leaders, administrators, everyone, and implementing strategies that enhance or support language instruction. So it's all about our multilingual learners and our newly immigrated students. Immigrant youth is the term, IY. Title IV. So Stan Frieda is the person in charge of Title IV, and Stan, again, I think Jacqueline's going to put the link to the resources. Stan has a lot of resources, and you can get to them from the link that Jacqueline is sharing. And Title IV is a funny one. It's a few different things, and it's should be spent in a very targeted way. So those are the three sort of spending areas of focus. It's targeted for high need students to access a well-rounded education, targeted for high need students to have a safe and healthy learning environment, and also to improve the use of technology, to improve the academic outcomes and achievement and digital literacy for those high need students. And when we talk about high need, it explains it down there. So it could be CSI or students that have been identified through federal and state accountability as TSI, CSI, or as students needing support who are struggling, and consistently underperforming groups, or a particularly dangerous elementary school or secondary school. So there's a little, if you have questions, let me know. I'm going to open up the chat. Okay, no questions. All right, and nothing in the Q&A. So that was pretty straightforward. Keep going. So really the focus of this webinar is talking about making your requests for funding stronger. And I've taken a little bit of imagery from the requests from the request system on I4C. And one thing that I want to talk about is you're going to notice here that those terms, priority, outcome, performance measurement, and activities, are out of order from the way that they are represented in the grant management system. I have done that on purpose because listen, you're going to go ahead, you're going to fill them out in whatever order they're delivered to you, but you can jump around. And my suggestion to you is this. Establish your priority first, right? And that should be based on some sort of needs assessment, depending on what you're applying for and what grant funding you are targeting your application to, okay? And I think about it as a backward planning, almost like UBD, backward design. So you set your priority, you establish in your outcome what you want to see. And it should be observable and tangible. Oftentimes, it includes some sort of verb. We'll talk about it later. And then, how are you going to know if you were successful? So that's your performance measurement. So if my priority, I articulate my priority, I visualize and articulate what I want the outcome to be. What do I want to have happen at the end? What's my end goal? How am I going to know? How am I going to evaluate whether I've achieved my end goal? And then the activities are actually like the lessons that you are going to implement to achieve that end goal. So in that sense, I'm talking about backward planning. And, it says obviously on the slide that when we choose activities, that's when we need to bring our evidence in. And we should be citing some evidence that supports the activities that we are lining up to meet our outcome. All right. So let's talk a little bit about articulating your priority. And for some of the grants, you need more of a needs assessment than others. But the truth of the matter is, it is good practice to always have some sort of needs assessment and to always articulate your priority based on data that's put together and an assessment of what you've been doing and what you need. So, for example, when you're using Title I funds, let's say you're a CSI school, in a comprehensive school in need of improvement, and you're going to have to cite your strategic plan, your school improvement plan, in your application. All right. So the question here is, for example, if you're requesting title funds, have you referenced your improvement plan that documents how you're going to spend the funds and why you're spending them that way? And leading up to that improvement plan, you've collected and analyzed data. You've articulated priorities based on that data. You've articulated action steps and outcomes, and you're going to tie your application for Title I funds to that plan. And if you're requesting Title IIA or 3A funds, right, it explicitly says, I know in Title IIA and also in Title IV that you should be consulting with stakeholders, and in Title I as well, especially if you're a school in need of improvement, to get to get feedback around targeting those funds. And have you used data to evaluate how effective your previous use of funds were to revise your spending plans? And are your requests aligned with your current initiatives? I did similar, I just want to point out one more thing, Jacqueline. When you're requesting Title IV funds and when you're setting priorities, right, you want to make sure that your priority is aligned to one of those three areas, right? Providing all students with access to a well-rounded education, improving school conditions for student learning, or improving the use of technology in order to improve the academic achievement, okay, of your highest need students. Thanks, Jacqueline. So the second piece, the outcome piece. These examples are taken from a document that I created for you that I'm going to share in a little bit and that we will send to you in the follow-up folder. But your outcomes should be tangible and observable. And the reason that I've underlined those words is that they are indeed verbs, okay? This is what's going to happen, right? Happy School is going to implement a systematic collaborative data-driven practice for PLCs. Happy students at Happy School, they're going to demonstrate improved scientific inquiry practices. And we're going to measure this. That's the thing. That's the beauty here. Happy School will integrate all community stakeholders into the school improvement process, right? That's the outcome. That's the end goal. We want to have integrated families, okay? We want our kids to be using inquiry practices. We want our teaching teams to implement PLCs. Those are examples of observable, tangible outcomes that are related to our priorities. Next. So this is the place where we talk about measuring those outcomes. So you are going to want, whenever possible, and I think it's almost always possible, to use a SMART goal when you are creating your performance measurements. And I'm going to go back into this. I'm going to show you many, many examples, and I'm going to share the document with you. But here's some examples of just some SMART goals, okay, that could be used to measure an outcome. So we have here, and I'm going to go into SMART goals in a second. You can see that an outcome, I'm going to look at the performance measurement and I'm going to tell you what the outcome was. So average score for belonging domain items as measured by student perception survey will increase from baseline of 57% in 2024 to 80% by June 2026. So a possible outcome that we might be measuring with this SMART goal might be to increase positive school climate or increase positive relationships in our school, right? And this is an outcome measurement for that. I'm going to read the next one and then I'm going to work backwards. Average score for items pertaining to instructional leadership on admin feedback survey will increase from baseline of 60% in September to 75% in June 2024. So the outcome we might be measuring here, the outcome that we want, is basically, I would say, improved instructional leadership or improved instructional supervision by leadership. So that might be the outcome, and then this would be the measure. And I'm going to take the last one. 95% of happy school students will make growth gains of over 50th percentile according to fall to spring NWEA in reading and math, or another valid and reliable assessment, such as a performance task. And I would say that this performance measurement is seeking to measure our efficacy in the outcome of improving student academic performance in math or reading. Okay. And finally, we have sort of the lessons or the middle that we fill in to get to our outcome. And these are our activities in our applications. And in those activities should be chosen because they are either research-based or evidence-based, and at the very, very least, best practices, but we're going to talk about that. Okay, so this is an example of an activity that is also supported by a research piece. So the activity here is basically the applicant is asking for funds to be used for 2 days of professional development, where teachers are going to come together and create proficiency scales that are aligned to standards from the C3 social studies standards. So that's the activity request. And then the research underneath supports that proficiency scales are useful and effective tools in increasing student achievement, increasing student voice, student engagement in learning, taking on responsibility for learning, okay? And you can see that it's described there underneath, and that there is a researcher cited there to support that information, which is Rick Wormelli, which is he's a middle school guy. And we're assuming that this is, this research support is from the book that the author of this request read. Okay, so you can see the relationship between the activity and then the research support for that activity. All right, let's talk a little bit about SMART goals. Many of you may know this. It is likely a review. There is going to be some tools here that you can use, because it's possible also that there are other people on this call that are not on this call that need some help with this, and you may need some resources to share with them. So just a reminder: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. That is what the acronym stands for. So specific is, what do we want to accomplish? How are we going to measure it? Is it doable? Is it based on needs? And when will we accomplish it? Okay. This is a worksheet that we're going to share with you. It'll be in the folder, and it sort of helps you make sure that your ultimate SMART goals relate to your priorities and respond to the root causes of your issues. So when you're thinking about a SMART goal to articulate, right, you have your priority. You're going to want to think about the root causes of that priority or that problem that you're trying to address in the outcomes and in your funding requests. All right. And what this organizer is asking you to do is put down the priority, put down what you think the root causes are, and draft your goal, your SMART goal, based on those root causes and your measurements. And if you can draft your goal and your measurements based on those root causes, chances are the activities that you choose to support that priority will be aligned with the root causes and your intended outcomes. And then you see the vertical SMART there. And what we're asking you to do is, this is a process. It's hard to articulate those SMART goals sometimes. I got to be honest, I've been doing it for 10 years all the time. And every time something comes out clunky. So what you're going to do here is you're going to draft a goal. Don't be so tight and hard on yourself. Draft the measurements and then filter it through the SMART criteria and revise it. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to use this worksheet. And I have a couple different worksheets. There's one on the next slide that's also blank. This is it's the same worksheet, really. It just allows for several different priorities to feed into a singular priority. So if that's helpful to you, you can go ahead and use that. And I filled this out for you. So on the next slide, you can see here, working all the way from the left, I articulated here some priorities. So, okay, we want to increase our staff's capacity to differentiate. Oh gosh, there's so many priorities. Where do I start? I want to implement consistent and efficient systems for behaviors because my kids can't learn because of behaviors and I can't differentiate, or my classrooms, my teachers can't differentiate. There's behaviors going on. They're having trouble differentiating. And there's all sorts of barriers there. So I don't really know where to start. Okay. In terms of their families can't be engaged either. And I know that learning only happens when families are engaged. Okay. So I have prioritized the bottom. Okay. And chosen to remove barriers and find innovative strategies to engage families. And I've decided on that as my priority. I've listed some of the root causes for the engagement issue. And again, these root causes are going to feed back into the activities that I decide that I pursue in my funding application. Then I went on and I drafted a goal. I want families to feel a greater engagement in their child's learning and have greater awareness of their child's learning goals. And there's going to be some sort of pre and post assessment survey. All right. And then underneath, I hope in that pre and post assessment survey that they are going to report good or excellent levels of engagement. I'm not quite doing it there. And there's a couple different measurements there. And by the way, there is nothing wrong with including multiple measurements to measure your outcomes. It's actually a great idea. And over here on the right-hand side, I filtered it through my SMART criteria. So my specific outcome, families will feel a greater sense of engagement in their child's learning and have greater awareness of the learning goals set for their child, as evidenced by pre and post parent survey results and attendance at conferences and events. And beneath it, I have quantified my measurements. I am hoping there will be a 25% increase in parents who report good or excellent levels of engagement. So it's a pre and post, right, with their child's schooling according to the items on the June 2020 parent portion, blah, 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 blah. And then I quantified the second measurement as well. I'm looking for a 35% increase in attendance between the fall and the spring parent conferences, as evidenced or as measured on the counts of the sign-up sheets. So it's very, very specific. Okay. Next. In case you have anyone who's struggling, we have created a little prompt sheet. And I'm sorry, the date's wrong up there, but we will send this to you. And it basically just says, this is a good way to start a SMART goal. By this date, we will do this. And that goes back to your needs assessment by implementing or developing or doing something. Okay, that's your outcome. And then your measurement, your performance measurement at the bottom as measured by. Okay, that was enough about SMART goals. Anybody have any questions? I'm looking. All right.
So far.
Moving on. Thanks, Jacqueline. Whoops.
Oh, that must have been a clickable slide.
Yes.
Because it took me right to it. There we go.
You know what? Now that we're there, can you go back?
Sure.
Sorry.
No, it's no
I'm
problem.
going to take y'all there. All right. This is a handout that I have created with the help of a couple of folks from the Department of Ed in the title programs. And what I attempted to do here, Jacqueline, do me one favor and just go back up to the top. I just want to navigate left to right in what we're looking at. On the left, I've tried to articulate maybe 10 needs, priorities. Okay, so those are your priorities. And I've stated them each in a way that says, right, needs assessment has demonstrated that this is a priority for us. And I'm going to talk you through this first one. So the needs assessment that our school or our district did revealed that data-driven skills and practices are weak for staff at Happy School. And as a result, instruction is not as consistent or as targeted as it needs to be. Now, because of in the process, right, of doing that needs assessment and some of our root causes, what was revealed is that we didn't have PLCs. So, and also we know that PLCs is a very, very evidence-supported strategy for growing data culture and developing data skills in a school setting and improving student learning. So the outcome articulated here is that Happy School implement systematic, collaborative, data-driven PLCs. The performance measurement here is that all grade level PLC teams will evolve in their growth as a team. So I'm not looking at student data, right? That looking at student data isn't going to measure whether our teachers are effectively implementing PLCs. 4 years from now, it will, because we're hoping our scores will grow and go up and improve. But from September to June, I can't really hope for that. And that's not going to be an indicator of effectiveness. What is going to be an indicator of effectiveness is if the teachers, number one, are able to look at performance indicators or a rubric, a growth rubric or a performance rubric for PLC, which we have one, which we can share with you, and evaluate themselves at the beginning of the year and evaluate themselves at the end of the year, along with potentially an administrator, right? So if there's an administrator sitting in there from the beginning to the end of the year or visiting or coming in periodically, that administrator can also do an objective evaluation that will show growth from beginning potentially to sustaining by the end of the year. So that is why that is the performance measure, okay? And I've used obviously the as evidenced by and the arrow to make that connection. Then my next step, planning backwards, is, okay, well, how am I going to make that happen? Well, I am going to request funds for embedded coaching and PLC practices that include data protocols, collaborative inquiry protocols, analyzing student work protocols. I am also going to request paid time for my teachers to work over the summer to develop common assessments to leverage. And I'm also going to have professional development coaching. And skipping over for a second to the appropriate title program, it's a lot about professional development. So I'm requesting those funds from Title IIA. They're applying for Title IIA funds. And where it says sample research support, what I've put there for you guys is just some authors that you can look for support for those activities. So that's how that's working. Can we go down to, let's go down a couple. Let's look at this one. The needs assessment revealed that students are struggling with inquiry-based science learning. Students at Happy School, we want them, what we really want is we want to see our kids doing inquiry-based learning. The only way that we are going, I don't know whether their science scores will go up by the end of the year or not. I can't tell. They'll hopefully go up in a year, 2 years, 3 years over time, right? But there's no guarantee. Whoops. There's no guarantee that, is that your screen, Jacqueline? There's no guarantee their scores will go up, right? So I have to have a measurement that is actually going to show that my students have increased their use of inquiry skills. And what that's going to look like is it's going to look like an observation rubric. That's going to be my performance measure. It's going to be an observation rubric where I have been able to articulate the observable practices that I want to see students doing when I walk into the classroom. And we're going to have growth in that rubric, those observations from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. Okay. So if we look over here, I've articulated the measurement, and it says 95% of students will progress one level in their execution of inquiry-based work habits, according to trimester teacher observations, using inquiry rubric in a STEM lab, in the STEM lab. Because you know what? I think that the best place to do this is a STEM lab, right? We're going to do STEM lab activities. I am requesting funds to do STEM lab activities so that I can teach inquiry practices. And I'm also going to purchase inquiry-based science curriculum materials. So the outcome of the request is not the STEM lab. The outcome is seeing our students practice and use those inquiry practices. The measurement is measuring whether and how much growth students have done using those practices. The activity is the STEM lab. All right, and so that would be a Title 4A. So the rest of this document, you know, there's sometimes the research column is more robust than others. Okay, I do have some research slides in here that I'll take you to, but in every one of these rows, you have the relationship between the needs assessment to the articulated outcome, to the measurement, to the activities tied to the title program that would be, and sometimes there's more than one title program that might be appropriate for it. There's overlapping, right? So you want to take your whole title request activity and think about the big picture and think how you're going to make the most use of funds that are available to you to achieve the outcomes that you've prioritized. Any questions on this document? You are going to get a copy of it. Okay, and I hope that it'll be helpful. I think we just have a couple more slides and we're good to go. Thanks, Jacqueline. All right. I just want you guys to know I took her by surprise with asking her to Vanna for me.
It is no problem.
Okay, let's just go to, we're talking about research sites and resources to find evidence. Okay, and I want to talk a little bit about evidence-based versus research supported. Evidence-based means that there is a replicated study, okay, a research study that has been replicated that shows positive outcomes for students in a controlled study. We can't always get that. Don't be cowed because you can't cite an evidence-based research study. If you can, that's fabulous. If you can't, move to your research supported. Okay, move to your research supported information. And research supported information are practices, whoops, typo, that are developed based on research in the field. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. I know that reciprocal teaching is a resource supported practice. Okay, not only has John Hattie cited it in his effect sizes, but individually, the ingredients of reciprocal teaching, okay, like questioning, summarizing, clarifying, each of those strategies has been supported by research, not in controlled studies, but I know that each of those strategies is research supported. Okay, so feel free to go and get the research, to look for the research that you need and cite it and use it and learn from it, even if it's not a particular controlled study. It is okay in your requests, as long as your requests for your activities are indeed research supported. You can feel confident about that. Now, a little warning, I guess, is the phrase best practice. And, you know, as I was putting the slides together, I was thinking, I use that phrase so much. And what I mean by best practices are research supported practices. But when you're busy Googling away, the phrase best practice can't always be trusted. Because in reality, best practice could include anything from, you know, something that the guy next door really loves to a research supported practice. So I would be skeptical and careful when you see that phrase, when you're looking for support for your activities. So, you know, this is John Hattie. We love John Hattie. Okay. I have to say I use him a lot. And if you don't know who he is, he's that Australian guy who did the meta-analysis, and he identified all sorts of strategies, curriculums, approaches, pedagogical approaches, conditions for teaching and learning that had an effect size that was either above or below 0.4. And this is the quick study here. 0.4 means that if you do this particular thing or implement this strategy, right, a student will make a year's growth. Anything above 0.4 suggests that a student will make enhanced growth under those conditions. And that's what the phrase effect sizes means. And Google away visible learning. He's a great guy. His research has really changed education. There's a lot of iterations of his research. 2009 is not the most current. I think it's 2018, but this was the best graphic I could get, and I wanted it to be big for you. So, you know, on the left-hand side, for example, we have some teaching effects. And if you look down here, I see there's reciprocal teaching. It has an effect size of 7.4, metacognitive strategies, 6.9. So all of these different strategies here, if you were requesting activities, let's say you were asking for a professional development expert to come in and teach your staff how to do reciprocal teaching, or you were getting books for a book study and you wanted to pay salaries to teachers to do the book study and then get together over the summer and integrate and recreate their curriculum their units to integrate reciprocal teaching. Okay. Your justification, right? Your research base could be John Hattie and his effect sizes. So that's what I'm trying to point out to you here. And it's the same thing on the right-hand side. If you were going to try to purchase a phonics program, you can go back and use John Hattie and his effect sizes to support your request for a certain activity or material. Next. So Sorry. What we've tried to do here is I've listed a bunch of resources for you where you can go and start to look for research support for your measurements, your activities. And this is not comprehensive, but these are some real good ones. So you have that list here, okay? And that's really about it. What Works Clearinghouse is a place where you will find evidence-based research studies. And you're going to be amazed how few there are that actually show concrete positive effect. So it's a really tough road to go the evidence-based sometimes, but if you could find it, it's great. So does anybody have any questions before we close? I'm going to just open the chat. Thank you for coming today.